The next time someone asks you to name something high quality that's made in China, look them straight in the eyes and say, racing. From the start of sprint quali all the way through to the final lap of the Grand Prix, there is one word that describes the racing in Shanghai. Fun. And boy, did we ever need that. There was something for everyone this weekend, with one exception. The people who can only achieve climax when Verstappen doesn't win got left out. But for everyone else, there was certainly something to enjoy. This weekend may have changed my opinion slightly on sprint races. I've been saying for years now that unless they're reverse grid, I struggle to see what sprints bring to a race weekend. But Shanghai showed me just how much value a sprint can add even without a major format change. It's like adding a half scoop of ice cream on top of your scoop of ice cream. Sure, it's more of the same, but I love ice cream. Why am I complaining about getting more just because it isn't a different flavor? Right from the start of sprint qualifying, we were in for a real treat. Changing weather conditions meant quali was completely unpredictable. Hometown hero Zhou Guanyu managed to scrape his way into Q2 and Q3, which the crowd loved, and by the end of Q3, provisional pole had changed hands so many times in the last 5 minutes that I lost count. All of this chaos ended up with Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton on the front row, with Fernando Alonso right behind them. Then there was the sprint itself. Norris choked immediately, as is tradition, and then it was Lewis's race to lose, which he both did and didn't. It was delicious watching Rosberg making comments about how easy it would have been to defend.
Could have easily got more aggressive there in that hairpin and just closed the door properly. There was no reason why not. Close the door, Lewis. Like, go aggressive, just properly close it. Yeah. Pity just let him through so easily.
But let's be real, Lewis only lost the sprint if you subscribe to the Bobby family credo.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Second place in a race where Max reached the finish line is basically a win in 2024. Oof. As for us Alonso fans, we had to have a support group meeting after the end of that sprint. And we're not supposed to tell outside people about what we say in group. By this point, we're only at Saturday and I've already burnt out my adrenal glands. But then we had quali for the actual Grand Prix and it went pretty well as expected. Except for Lewis going out in Q1. What was that all about? I mean, I would have thought getting second place in the sprint would have brought his mojo back. But now it's looking more like we're going to have to send a secret agent back in time if we want to retrieve his mojo.
I have his mojo.
Race day, I have but one quibble with. 2 a.m. start time for me just isn't feasible. And that's it. That's my only complaint about this entire weekend. And that should speak volumes for a season I have been vocally frustrated with. I don't even care that Max did so much dunking that we should start calling him donuts. Everyone else was putting on a world-class display of close racing, while Max was doing a masterclass in extracting race pace from a car. In the early stages of the race, Verstappen was a second and a half per lap faster than everyone else. I'm not even mad, I'm just impressed. I love this circuit. And that, right there, is what could fix F1. People are far more accepting of a dominant season if the racing is good. And the racing is always better at purpose-built circuits. And they don't all have to be old school tracks. Circuit of the Americas and Shanghai are both great examples of younger circuits that are still phenomenal. They have soul. They have passing opportunities. They have unique features like the big sweeping section in Coda, or the snails at turns 1 to 4 and 11 to 13 in China. And that's why, if they're going to keep this huge calendar, they need to prioritize the quality of the tracks that they're racing at. I know the number of races each year, as well as the number of street circuits, are common criticisms, but they can't have both. I can accept a 24 race calendar if it's mostly at great tracks and the street circuits are kept to a minimum. But if we're gonna have 10 street races a year, I fail to see the point. A street race now and then is nice to shake things up. It's like the icing on the cake. It's great, but nobody wants to eat a bowl full of icing. It's clear that purpose-built tracks are more fun to drive, and when the drivers are having fun, it's always more fun to watch. You'll never see a battle at a street circuit where they go back and forth every corner like we did with Stroll and Magnussen in this race. And on that subject, there's a Canadian who wants to talk about exactly that. That lap left my balls emptier than your mom does. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Lando Norris fans were definitely stoked that he didn't choke in the Grand Prix, but he still doesn't have that coveted W. One weird thing I've noticed is how the commentators keep saying that he's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And I mean, it kind of makes sense, but only if you don't think about it all that much. As far as being a bridesmaid goes, it's not like he's being invited onto the podium by Max, and I fail to see how a win is like getting married. I mean, it's not like winning an F1 race makes you let yourself go and slowly saps your will to live. That one's for all the boomers. I got you. I think most people were surprised to see a McLaren up there in second place, but even more surprising than that was how Piastri struggled. Oscar's my boy. I mean, he shares a first name with my baloney.
It's O-S-C-A-R.
But he needs to figure out tire management. Lando's expert tire management allowed him to keep his rubber alive long enough to cruise to the podium. But Oscar's tires fell off quickly and cost him significant pace compared to his teammate. If Piastri truly is the next big thing, as the pundits would have you believe, he needs to figure this out fast. If there's one thing Grosjean proved, it's that if you want to do hot laps every lap, F1 is the wrong category for you. Then of course, there's Fernando Alonso. For a guy who was fighting at the front pretty much the whole time, a DNF in the sprint and 7th in the Grand Prix just feels rough. You don't need to be Nico Rosberg to see that Aston screwed him with Ferrari tier strategy when they put him on softs behind the safety car. But luckily for us, Nico was happy to point that out. And that's why we love him. That's why this week, for the poll of the week, I didn't even ask a question. Because there is no question. Nico Rosberg needs to come out of retirement to beat Verstappen in equal machinery. He's the GOAT Slayer. And we need him to put Max down the same way he did Lewis and Michael. Speaking of getting put down, Crofty said,
RB stands for really bad.
But I think we all know RB stands for Ricardo's beaten. Sorry. And if you didn't think that was spicy enough, here's the spicy joke of the week. Stroll rear-ended Ricardo during the safety car restart, taking him out of the race. Given how desperately Daniel needed to finish ahead of Yuki, getting hit from behind really fucked him in the ass.
I'm doing lots, I'm that king of the track. Spinning rhymes so fast, just like a heart attack. Hit the throttle, I accelerate with precision. You're my competition, gonna stay in submission. I grip the mic like I grip the wheel. Make it move so sick, it's hard to believe. It's wearing race through these beats like I'm on the circuit. Every line I drop is pure, you're acrobatics. No need to rehearse it. I'm the F1 driver with the killer flow. I'm burning rubber on the track in the stereo. So buckle up, get ready for the ride of your life. Cause no nuts is here to take you to new heights.